Good evening everyone. My name is Arun Kumar Nair and we will be having a My Story session with Mr. Sanjay Deshpande.
I've been given with a very special responsibility and opportunity to present in front of you an unfolding story. And it's a very interesting story, special one for us in a couple of sense. One, because this story is unfolding right in front of us in Pune. Two, because we don't see too many deep tech products coming out from Pune or India as such, right? So in these two senses, it's a very, very special story, and I'm privileged to have Mr. Sanjay with me today. So we're going to have a wonderful talk with Mr. Sanjay. Believe me, it's going to be a super rocking session. When I met him for the first time, his passion literally rubbed on me, and I'm sure it's going to do the same on you as well. So Sanjay, tell me, starting from a scientist, right, which you mentioned that it was your passion, and you. So how did that transition from a scientist to entrepreneur happen?
Yeah, so thanks. So before I start with this story, I would like to thank TiE for inviting me here and being amongst some of the courageous people. And I use that word very strongly. It takes a lot of courage to think what you guys are thinking. And I will say this to my experience. Okay? And my wife keeps telling me the same thing, that through the journeys that she has seen me going through. Okay? If you're inside the story, it's different. Somebody who's observing it from outside, it's slightly different. Okay? And hence I'm saying it's a lot of courage. And there is a humorous angle to it as well, which I will unveil as we. So there is courage into starting a company. There is a lot of courage to go and talk to investors. There is a lot of courage to talk to customers. The fundamental reason for that is our education system, and I was talking to T. Satish, as he calls himself. That why is it that India has not been at a stage where it should have been otherwise? And the root cause of that is our education system. It tries to make a square out of everything. And I also touch upon that.
Yeah.
So my journey into this ecosystem didn't start as what I intended it to be. So I was a scientist. I was never to be in business. I was happy cracking mathematical algorithms. I was part of Tata Research Center. And so I just come back from Canada. I'd done my master's in computer science, in actually critical computer science, more specifically abstract algebra. Some of those things which I could never share with anyone but my advisor. Okay. So when I came back and I joined TiE, Dr. E.C. Supparao, who was the director then, he's also the inventor of American Diamond. So you guys, I don't know if you know of American Diamond, it's an artificial diamond. So I used to have these interesting sessions with him, a debate of sorts, okay? And he was an amazing person. He's an amazing person, I would say. And he kind of instigated us, inspired us, okay, at every moment of our scientific journey. And he used to say that unless, and we had these long debates of why is it that science in India does not get commercialized? Okay, we have so many CSIR labs, we have so many DRDO centers. But why is it that fundamental research, if it's happening, doesn't get commercialized? Okay? Which has a very deep-rooted reason, which is the reason for why our entrepreneurial ecosystem is not active as one would see in the Silicon Valley. Okay? I would say a lot of this burden is on the professors and teachers, and some of that has to be transformed. And I was having these long debates with him, and he used to say that unless scientists go and learn how to sell, okay, we will not see that transformation. Okay. And I was a different person. I used to sport a beard like you. Okay. And I used to move around in chappals, and those days there was something called a shabnam. Okay. It's like a kind of a bag that you will only see with people in the 90s. Okay. So that debate led me to a point where I said, okay, then probably it's time for me to get out of TiE, because I don't think that will happen in TiE. So I quit and I joined Infosys. The team there, Ajay Dubey interviewed me, and I got my tie, the first tie in my life, and shoes, and he said, you can't come to interview like this. You have to come in our Infosys standard. So the trigger for me into this business world was actually an experiment. It was a mission. to explore how science can get into the commercial world. And it has been an amazing experience. It has been an amazing journey for me to explore each step of that.
So is it, was it by choice, design, was that a cautious decision, or it just happened by chance?
It was a reaction, actually. It was a passionate reaction when somebody says that, science in India is not getting out, scientists in India are not producing what they should be doing. So as a scientist myself, I was also a professor, and people saying that, professors don't do anything. So it was like a reaction to that. It was saying, okay, let me look into it. Okay, so unless you take the first step, you would not see the challenges of why that is not happening. And now, after about 20 years, 15 years of that journey, I can pretty much, say that why certain things can happen, how we can transform that process on a very large scale. Okay, and that was a reaction. It was a very, very passionate reaction of how to get science out in the market.
Okay. So from your journey to Infosys, to Tata Research, so all your career you have been a scientist. Uniken actually started as a research lab. So how was that transition from an employee at Infosys then to Tata Research? So what was that moment, what was that point when you actually thought that, okay, let me turn my passion into some kind of business?
Yeah, so these are really exciting times. If you are a startup now, you can get married easy. I don't think it's a big, I would say, medal that you have, right? In those days, I'm talking 2003, 2. Okay, the ecosystem was not as vibrant as it is today. So in Infosys, I realized that building an innovation ecosystem within that organization was slightly different. It was slightly, because the organization had different objectives in those days. Okay, so I said maybe you need a clean slate infrastructure and ecosystem to be built ground up. In a large organization, molding and changing certain things, okay, it takes time, and time is one resource we all don't have in plenty. It's not infinite. So I said at that point that I need to quit Infosys and start something on my own to build this ecosystem ground up. And we actually started in a one-bedroom apartment with really 15 lakh rupees investment with 4 of us. One of us just got married. He hadn't told, he never told his wife that he's starting a company. So he told her after all the incorporation had happened. So it was not like what it is today. It was more of ye karna hi hai. That because we were so passionate about creating that ecosystem. Okay, that we had no other choice but to quit Infosys. That was it. So we said, unless we get out of that comfort zone, this will not happen. So that drove me to that. And nowadays I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I help a few of them. So that motive is very important. I always realize that unless you have that long-term vision motive, the why of it, right? So if you're not clear about that, I'm not saying it should be clear 100%, but it should be there in your head. And that motive, nowadays it's becoming more transactional, okay? Because of the way media has played out the startup ecosystem, especially the print media has played it out in a different way. So nowadays it's about, I can start a company, I can get venture funding, I can get it acquired and be rich within like 3 years of time, right? Because we hear a lot of these Silicon Valley stories. Well, I don't think it is that way, even in Silicon Valley. It is not as glamorous, it is not, so the media has played it out differently, okay? And I feel some of these myths have to be busted by entrepreneurs, that it is not that, especially for people who are starting off. It is the long-term marathon.
I'm sure you're bursting some of those myths today.
So I will share my experiences in this journey. But I think that part of motive, why you're doing something, defines a lot of what you will do with the journey.
Okay. So you mentioned about initial savings and all of that.
Yeah.
We also spoke, and you gave a strong emphasis on cash flow management.
Yeah.
Not just during the startup times, but before actually when you're starting.
Yeah.
Can you touch upon that?
Yeah. So so like we run our house, right? The unfortunate thing about business is, I'll put it from a systems perspective. There is an aperiodic